So, in 1876, 100 years after the founding of the United States of America, France decided that it wanted to send us a present, essentially. They wanted to give us a gift as, like, hey, you made it to 100, which is not that much when you're talking about it, especially compared to France or England that have been around a long, long time. But they're like, hey, you guys made it to, like, 100 years, and so props to you, here's a statue. And what I've always found interesting is if you're going to send someone a 100th birthday present, you're going to give them a statue, and you're probably going to say, like, this embodies you, right? This is the thing that represents who you are as a being, or as a community, right? And so what I find interesting is that statue would eventually become probably the most definitive, the most recognizable statue or anything across any skyline in all of America. I mean, you probably put like the Golden Gate, the Missouri Arch, the Mount Rushmore, or like there's some stuff that like is competitive, but none of those are even close to the significance of the Statue of Liberty that's at Ellis Island holding the torch that like welcomes immigrants from all over the world into New York Harbor, right? Like, it's the most recognizable statue, like maybe even worldwide. Like everyone, like you show somebody a picture of the Statue of Liberty, everyone knows what it is. So, my question, why liberty? There are other statues that exist, like, I mean, if you were to ask people nowadays, the thing that represents the ideological concept that kind of is personified by America, it'd be like racism or something. But there are other statues that they could have chose. Like Lady Justice has been around for a long time. You know, the sword and scales with the blindfold on, right? Why didn't they put justice out there, welcoming everyone? Like everyone needs to act justly in America. Simply, at least this is what I kind of summarize from it, is that justice is not as important, it's not as integral to American culture as liberty is. That from the founding, whether you like Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death, Ben Franklin, right? He who wishes to have security rather than liberty will lose both and deserves neither, right? That simply liberty is far more like the ability to do whatever you want has been, even like without the caveat of without hurting someone else, like the ability to do whatever you want has been far more close to the heart of American culture than any single other principle. Even in these because we're talking about statues and things, like even in the instance of like tearing down statues because of whatever you want to say, white supremacy, racism, even the stuff talking about like the protests throughout large cities in America, like those kind of typify this issue of that they're suspending maybe their interest in safety. They're going to a place that's not inherently safe, and then they're going to a place where security is, or the security forces of our country, are kind of on the opposite side of them. They're putting themselves in a place that they're not secure. They're willing to infringe on the secure property of other people, right? Or public property per se, as well, and like tearing down the statues, like they're putting themselves in legal as well as physical danger to go through, and it's like personal expression, right? They're not just tearing them down, but they're actually like tagging them up and things like all those. Like those are all personal choices. Those are liberties that are being taken, and they're being displayed, and they're being shown like that. even in the stuff that's like going against the grain in our country, going through like, I mean, Kim Davis and like stuff like everything, like every instance where you see like that, you still see liberty is more important. People have marched for liberty. People have it's far more critical in the heart of an American. And the thing is, when you're talking about simple liberty, like as we can see in our society around us, the landscape as we survey it, two people's liberties often collide with one another, and they result in bruises and litigation. Like in all those instances like that, we have the tendency not only to want to do whatever we want, but also at the expense of those around us. Like, I mean, two cars pull up to a stoplight, both of them, honestly, most often will assume that they have the right of way, regardless, right? It's that, honestly, let me do what I want and get out of my way while I do it, is quintessential American. But not only is it quintessential American, I'd say, like, as far as it being enshrined in American culture, this is something that goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. This is something quintessentially human. And the only way that society has found to limit that is through totalitarian oppression. That most people are not allowed to do whatever they want. They're only allowed to do what an individual, a king or a ruler or something, tells them that he wants them to do. And it creates oppression and order, and it creates chaos. It creates disadvantagement, disenfranchisement of a lot of people, and overwhelming wealth and prosperity for a minority of individuals, right? That's the only thing that we've found so far, as far as if you want security, if you want an opinion of justice to prevail in a society, it's just going to be an individual's version, not everyone's, and not necessarily any other person's. So I think it's interesting. I think if you were to try and build a statue and you were gonna, like, this is what American culture is now, I'd say that social justice is probably the thing that typifies society. We are obsessed with social justice, and yet it seems like every time a movement or something comes up that tries to fight for social justice, it moves us further away from true justice. That they're willing to, as much as people fight against racism, they tend to become racist in the process. As much as people try to fight against systemic whatever it is that they think that they're fighting against, they tend to become that very thing. It's something that, I mean, from like Twilight Zone to like anything that's got any kind of philosophical underpinnings behind it has displayed this, of that, like, beware the revolution, because it will soon turn against you. That I think it's something that we need to kind of focus back on, the idea of that that we all want to be free. That more than anything else, that we as individuals want to be free, but most often the ways that we pursue freedom just end up enslaving us all the more.